here I am today. Yesterday, if you're around, I was attempting to take apart a Beyer. This one is a 260, I believe. Am I correct? Where is your magic number? M260. Now, most of you know that I've done, if you even look on this page, you'll see a lot of 160s. I believe I've done 500s. One Beyer 160s. Now, here's the crazy thing. This things may have changed now. I haven't searched recently, but when I started working on these mics about 3 years ago, maybe, I can't remember. If you look at the videos, probably the first dates of me doing these. When I tried to find out how to take these apart, it was incredibly difficult to find any information. And there was 2 or 3 guys that were the best in the United States that would repair these, and they just never gave up. How you opened them, how you maintain them, what's the mystery about these? So all Beyer mics, I personally think the Beyer brand is one of the greatest brands on earth. I don't think there's one mic, and I'll be talking like maybe early 2000s, 90s, maybe 80s, even going back to the 60s with Beyer 160s. Now that I've done a lot of ribbon work and I've done a lot of repairing on mics, I've come to realize that some of the designs for even a Beyer 160 look like very familiar to a BK5, which is an RCA. The theory of how they did this and came up with this 2 ribbon thing that happens in Beyer 160s, I don't know of any other microphones that have 2 ribbons in them besides stereo mics. There is a very unusual mic from I think it's called a Titan or something. It's a really strange mic from I think maybe CAD, and they have 2 ribbons that are side by side as opposed to being stereo, and they sounded pretty incredible. But once again, we're talking about Beyerdynamics, and my favorite mics on earth are the Beyer 160s, the 201s, obviously the 380, and later on they had one called an X. God, is it a 50? It almost looked exactly like a Beyer 380, but you can get those. And if you could find the right cartridges from these headphones that were made by Beyers from the 60s or 70s, you can have them retrofitted with these headphone cartridges or speakers that were figure 8, and that makes a Beyer 380. It's definitely something you want to look at. There's a repair guy named Cole's Picks out of Nashville. He does retrofitting, so if you can buy a Beyer, I want to say it's a something X50, looks almost identical to the Beyer 380. But anyways, back to this. So Beyer 160s, 130s. This is a 260, and then there's a 500. Then Steve Albini, who showed me how to record, had Beyer 201s that were on the snare when he used them. They were also used for guitars. The M88 is just, once again, a Beyer mic. That's like early Stone's kick drum mic. Amazing mic that has wonderful cancellation, and that is the best thing about some of the Beyers, is the cancellation that it has around it. So once again, yesterday, if you look at some of the videos and you go back in order they were done, yesterday I was going to start to work on this mic, and one of the screws was just embedded so deep. I mean, it came out of factory. No one had ever messed with it, but the screw was just ruined. I don't know if someone tried to take this apart before. I'm not sure, but I was able to get 2 of them out, and instead of spinning live on YouTube, me trying to figure it out, I ended up removing that screw. Took a little bit. But here is a wonderful Beyer 260 ribbon mic. Now, I've never opened one of these up except for today. Obviously, I popped the top off, but I didn't do any more because actually, with you, we're going to find out what's inside a Beyer 260. Once again, the 160 is one of my favorite mics. And years ago, when I started to work on these mics, there was literally no information. I think there was one guy that did a video of him just showing this come off, and then he showed removing the top, and then showed you what the ribbon looked like. but there was no any clue to like really how were the two ribbons installed in there, what were the pieces, how do you take it apart. And this one in particular has screws around it, but most of old Beyers don't have screws. So now you come into this logistical problem. How do you get the top off? Well, when I work on some of the older ones, I have a jewelry hammer, which is rubber, and it really it's forceful on the impact, but it's just slightly cushioned. Obviously you don't want to damage it. And then with a really fine screwdriver that has a flat head, you can go around on Beyer 160s and just slightly tap it until the glue clump comes loose, and then you could remove the top. Since this one is screwed in, you don't have to do it. Some of the newer, I shouldn't even say newer, but M500s, which are ribbon mics, aren't glued on, but they're screwed on. Really easy. Once again, I don't know why Beyer didn't do that a long time ago, but there's something mysterious about Beyers. You just can't find people to repair them. I think people do it now, but, and I know I've had, not a debate or an argument, but a while ago, Beyer wouldn't even bother repairing these. I think if you sent it in, they just pretty much replace the whole top part. They're not going to really go in there and repair your mic. They're just going to, it's almost like when EBs would go in for repairs, EBs or AKGs, and they had brass capsules, and they had so many problems with the capsules failing that they would just rip out the capsules, throw them away, and put on nylon capsule. So anyways, hey, we have Cowabunga going on. Oi, mate. Hello. Ahoy. Obviously, are you somewhere near the ocean? Or do you like Chip Ahoy? Okay, so anyways, hold on a second. I'm going to get a little drink of my sparkling water here. If you really dig this, in the thank yous, there's a little place you can send Manny a cup of coffee. It's not too much to ask, but I'm doing this one because I love it, and also I do want to share some information on doing this. So give me 1 second. Let me get a drink of my Pellegrino water. I don't know if you can hear that, but sorry. I didn't mean to be gross. Okay, so now I've quenched my thirst. Let's get into this. Beyer 260 ribbon. I've done 130s. I've done 500s. I've done Beyer 160s. I've done all assortments of RCA mics, but I've never done a 260. 500s have one ribbon. 130 has a ribbon, one ribbon. Beyer 160s have two ribbons inside. Uh-oh, you the man. All right. Dude, thank you so much. That means a lot that you're checking this out. And like I said, this is strictly, I'm not doing anything to sell you something. I'm not trying to sell Beyers. I just know that there is a huge lack of information on not only working on ribbons. Besides, I mean, these ones are the hardest ribbons to work on, I've found out. And also old Reslows. And somewhere in my history, you're going to find me doing one of the first ribbon mics, which is the Telefunken. That thing was insane to replace a ribbon in it or to adjust the ribbon. So as companies have gotten, you could say, even sending their stuff to China, and I know people give that a lot of heck for when, I mean, I'm building my own ribbon mic as well. I have a company called Original GravityWave Microphone Company. I have a sick, pardon my French, fucking mic that's coming out. It's all hand built in Los Angeles. Top to bottom. We're trying to get the magnet sourced out somewhere over here, but if not, that would be the only thing that comes from somewhere else. But in repairing all these mics, there is a common denominator of efficiency. And even though people give mics a lot of heck for coming out of China, I will say some of their designs for being efficient are a little bit genius. And if you look at even SE microphones has a Voodoo 1 and a 2, and I used to have them. I had them before I started repairing ribbons, so someone sent me one in to open it up. And it was kind of genius because you unscrewed it and there was two plates, but the plates were held by the magnets. And so like it's almost like you can't really screw it up putting it together. And then lately, of like AEA microphones and even MXLs, which I can't speak for AEA. I know the factories in Pasadena. I'm assuming that's all sourced out locally, but they do come with now their N22s and N8s are coming on a PC board that has the magnets already built into them. I've had a few N22s that have come in and I've repaired. And I was actually kind of shocked, but also I was kind of like, wow, how genius, because you get a PC board, it's already been printed out, the magnets are glued within that, all the circuitry is made, and also to give credit to that, N22s are phantom powered, so there is electronics going with it. So this mic is probably pretty caveman. There's probably a ribbon, magnets, a little bit of a sound chamber, and then a transformer at the bottom. But the newer microphones, which have a little bit more electronics in them for phantom power, and I'm assuming that because of the new DAWs of people plugging into UAs, which don't have a lot of gain, when you have a studio like mine, I end up having a bunch of preamps that are really loud and low distortion, so I can put a ribbon in it and crank it. But if I was to plug it into a DAW and start to crank it, maybe you get a lot of noise. So having phantom power is really great to help people get along with that, you know. Hey Shannon, I think if this is the right Shannon, your mic's going to be going out today. I'll send you an email if that's the right Shannon. I don't have my glasses on this second. Give me a second. Where are my glasses? Holy smokes, I'm blind. Oh, let me get a drink of my pickle juice. I know, how gross, right? You don't even know how good this is. I ate all these little miniature pickles and then I drink the juice. If you ever want to have your thirst quenched, pickle juice is actually really good for you. So I have my Pellegrino water and my pickle juice for brain power. Hold on. Damn, that is so good. Okay, let me find my glasses. I apologize for that. I thought I was totally ready to go. There they are. Okay, so once again, about the microphones. This is German made. And I will say these are some of my favorite microphones, but very difficult to work on. It's hard to take them off. There's 2 different glues. There's tape. There's a bunch of stuff in this that, like, it just makes it just for the novice or someone rolling up deciding they're going to work on this. I will say this. If you plan on doing anything about taking apart a Beyer mic, you have to assume that, I know, right? I should do a civil massey, but I ended up eating the pickles. I didn't put wires into them. I will say that these are some of the hardest mics to work on. But if you're going to do something like this, just make sure it's blown. It's your own mic. You've got nothing to lose if you scratch, dent, or technically may even ruin it. But if you want to dive into doing these, I can only give you a pre-warning that they're really difficult. And for me, I have an assortment of little tools and tweezers and screwdrivers I've acquired over the years. And like I said, even going to downtown LA and buying diamond files and jewelry hammers and all these little things that you need to get into these mics, some of the more difficult ones. But like I said, regarding other ribbons, there are some mics that are really easy to do. And if you're going to dive into even vintage mics, there's a whole problem with those because you have transformers, you have frayed wiring. If one of the wires come out of the transformer, you could actually ruin the microphone. And there's another thing I think that people don't really talk about. When you get an RCA or an old ribbon, or let's say even a, what were those names? There's like some other ribbons that look like RCAs and they're kind of like old school. If you just throw a Cinemag on it, it becomes boomy and almost useless. There was something about old transformers that had the right amount of cut in them that would be a high pass. And I think that Beyers have them, so they're not too boomy. I do think there's some transformers that have that naturally. So to get, if you're working on like some weird off-brand ribbon mic, try to use the original transformer before you upgrade it. I've come to find out that the cut of the ribbon and can add 2 or 3 dBs of sound to your microphone. So a good cut, good high quality ribbon will increase the fidelity of the microphone. So that's what's happening with this mic. A buddy of mine sent this to me. I tested it. It sounds small, not totally AM radio, but there's something wrong with it for sure. It just doesn't have the sound anymore. So, long story long, you guys have been sitting around for already 15 minutes. It's time to get into this microphone. A Beyer 260 looks just like it looks almost identical to a Beyer 160. I'm assuming this is going to have one ribbon in it, but we're going to find out. Beyer 160s have two. Beyer 500s have one, and Beyer 130s have one. Only 160s have two ribbons, and they sit like a sandwich on top of each other, which is the only microphone I know of, and this is a new mic. So we're going to take this off. I've already unscrewed it. All right. And there we go. There is the top. Now, you're going to look at this and be like, what the heck is that? Well, I don't know if you can see it. Let me put a little light on this. Yep, I see it in there. There is a ribbon right in the middle of that. And before I rip this open, right there is a ribbon mic. So, that being said, and also it's different even in design. This tape here is like a gauze. It's like a cloth tape. Beyer 160s have it surrounded the whole top. So why does this not have it? I don't know. Beyer 500s, I've even seen some with masking tape, and that's factory. So they put masking tape all around this. Now, because I've taken these apart before, I'm already going to assume you just can't grab this. This is a separate piece here. Let's see if I can show you a side view of it. So this tape is holding on this black piece of plastic. Now, Beyer 500s, which are ribbon mics, have a different top. It's really almost twice as big as this. And it's interesting, they have a plexiglass sheet that goes across here. So when the sound hits the plexiglass, it goes around it and then into the ribbon below it, which you can almost look like a kind of an elevator shaft with something blocking the middle, and the sound would go around the elevator down the shaft. That's how a Beyer 500 works. Now, when I do Beyer 500s, I remove that plexiglass, and the mic sound way better. So if you have a 500 and you want to get in there and do it, just like I said, all the warnings I said, make sure it's your own mic, make sure you've got room to wiggle if you ruin it. But if you want, there's people all over the United States that can do those for you and just have them remove the plexiglass. So once again, this is a ribbon mic side view. This is the magnet right here, or the transducer. This plastic piece has to come off for us to be able to work on the ribbon. And this gauze is kind of like a, it actually is not even there. It's not even, oh yeah. So this top, usually these are really difficult to get off. So I can tell already that the cloth is the only thing holding this on. Yeah, so that is easy to come off. But Beyer 160s and 500s are fully wrapped around. So it's a little bit of not a nasty job, but you just can't take off the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch tweezers here, because I actually don't want my tweezers that I was using there, or my screwdriver I meant, to start getting residue on it. So I have a bunch of different, these are actually, if you look up online, Gundam model kits, I've come to find out these are my favorite ones. So, and the only reason I found out that is I go to thrift stores a lot, and I found a set of Gundam tools. Now, this is when I first started making or repairing ribbons, and they're non-magnetic. I'm assuming they're probably aluminum, and as you can tell, these are just completely worn out. I mean, you can even see from me grabbing screws how many I bent the top, but these are my favorite tweezers. All right, long story long. So now we're taking off this and even though that's coming off, I just still want to be careful, because I don't want, there's usually a glue residue that turns into powder. I don't want it to go all over the mic. So once again, this is a Beyer 260. I'm not being delicate with this because I want it to be all precious. I just don't want glue and it's already leaving little dust particles. What happens is the glue that holds this down dries up. Once again, I don't know why they use a glue that dries up like that. Even if you use, so what I do is I use rubber cement. That's how I adhere it back on. That takes a long time to dry up, and it usually stays pretty good. And the reason I use rubber glue as opposed to some kind of super glue is that I do believe you should be able to work on these. If I adhere it with crazy glue, it's going to take a chance of ruining the plastic and eating it, or when you rip it off, it's going to break. And the reason I use rubber cement in these, because I do want it to have longevity. And I may see this mic again, and at least I know when I go to take it off that it's just rubber cement. If you're not familiar with rubber cement, which you'll see me, well, actually, I'm not going to do the whole thing here today because it's going to take a bit. But it's very, as you can tell, it's very goopy, and it dries up almost like, if you remember Elmer's glue, the white glue, the wood glue. It's just a lot easier to work with. It's easy to clean. What I use for cleaning also is nail polish remover, which is acetone, and that takes off crazy glue. It can remove that glue as well. You have to be careful with it because I use these boards that are special. It costs a little bit. If this drips on it, it kind of ruins it. This is one of those self-healing. So if I get a razor blade and I cut it, somehow it heals it up, which is black magic to me. All right, Shannon, dude, hook me up with a 5-spot. Hello. Looks like just for that, I'm gonna take a drink of my pickle juice on you, everybody. Let's give a round of applause for Shannon. And that's a man, so if you're a guy and you're a little creepy, don't be writing Shannon. Cheers, Shannon. I appreciate that, man. All right, so now let's get down to the nitty gritty. And anybody who wants to get me a coffee, I'm telling you, I'm going to be honest with you. My YouTube channel gives me enough money that I can go to Trader Joe's about once a month and buy my favorite tuna, my favorite water, some coffee, and then also hit Starbucks a few times. And my favorite coffee is actually going to Ralph's or a nice supermarket. And in Don Francisco, the espresso. That just is dynamite to me. So, Shannon, you're helping fund my addiction to coffee. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I haven't done drugs. I never have done drugs, actually, except one time I took acid when I was 18. I'm 59, so that tells you that was a long time ago. And I don't smoke weed, and the last time I got drunk was about 2008. I think that's the only reason I can get in here and super pumped to get in, that I'm not filtered out with some other kind of... I'm not saying it's bad either. I mean, some people need that to round off the edges. I have a friend that needs to smoke weed. When I hang out with him, I'm like, dude, hit that fucking pipe, roll that joint. You need to round off those edges. So I do think it works for some people. So what I want to do is I want to take this off, and it wasn't that hard to remove. And this tape is, like I said, it's like, it almost feels like a cloth tape. I'm going to say like a first aid kit kind of a tape. It isn't, it's kind of useless at this point. I have to look in my box. I haven't done 1/6 in a while, and I'm pretty sure somewhere in there I have some tape to use. Also, I've because of Beyer mics coming, recent ones with masking tape, I just have some blue masking tape that's really good. And like I said, this isn't forever, but it's enough to, for years and years to hold the mic together. And plus, when I use the rubber cement, that also works good as holding it down. So now I've removed that one side, and now I want to remove this other tape. I'm throwing this away. I'm not keeping it. I don't need it. But to know why this would be important right here, when I take that off, you can see right there, those are the screws for the ribbon. Actually, I just fucked up my thumb. I was going off to take off the top of the bulb, and it bent back my nail. Yes, it is dangerous to work on ribbon mics. Well, obviously, now that I'm looking at this, we now answer the question. There's only one ribbon in there. I'm sure if you looked at the manual, it would tell you that. But I've never worked on a 260, and I'll be honest with you, I very rarely see them. So, the 260 if this is the design of the top, this is different than a 500. A 500 also has one ribbon, has a larger, almost you could imagine the box on top, and the bulb of the mic is probably about 30% bigger than this one, which is used on stage. It's a vocal mic. So I haven't read, once again, the manual of what they do and how they do it, but maybe there's a reason that these are more of an instrument mic and the 500s are more like a mic on stage. But I did see David Bowie singing in Germany of one of his tours, and he looked like he was singing out of a 160. So, yeah, I mean, you know, God bless you if you're not worried about it. And and that tells you how cool these mics are. That is made so nice, because now that I'm making my own ribbon, I can really appreciate that. So I'm just taking this. This is going to be thrown away. Once again, if you join me, this is a Beyer 260, which is a little bit of a rarity. I haven't seen them. I haven't used them. I don't know any of my friends that have a 260, except my bud that sent me this one. Doesn't sound good. There's something wrong with it. I'm going to correct this, because I don't believe it's something... There's not a lot that can go wrong with these mechanically. The transformers, very rarely I know them blowing or going bad. But if you were to drop this and ruin it, you could shear off the cabling or the wires. I think there's these like copper wiring, or almost like thick wire that goes from this point down through the sound chamber to the transformer. But once again, I've never repaired these all the way down to the transformer. I'm usually just talking with someone about repairing the ribbon. So now we're going to remove this part, and it looks like it's pretty easy to remove. It is stuck still. Okay, there you go. All right, so that's what I was talking about. That stuff is just nasty. It's like a dust powder, almost like a rust. But whatever that glue is that they use on some of these does not last. So this microphone looks like it's... The ribbon looks okay. I can't see it being torn. But this being loose and moving around does not help the mic at all. I was shocked when because I was curious. I removed that, and then I put this back on and talked into it. The mic was totally useless. It just did not work. So when you put this on the top, then it works. Now, how is that and why is that? Because that is crazy. And I'll tell you why. If you can, I'm trying to give you a little good view of this to see if you can see this. Okay, so this right here, as you can tell, kind of curves in. The wind and the sound comes in here and is forced down the center. And that puts a lot of sound pressure right there on the ribbon, which really, that has to go into two magnets, turn into electricity and turn into sound. So the vibrations of the ribbon moving, well, actually these mics move like a piston. So most ribbons of the world, when the sound comes in the front, it moves like this. RCAs, even if an RCA is standing up, if the sound is coming in here, it's pushing back on the ribbon. So the sound comes in here, sound goes up this way, the ribbon moves just like that. These microphones are piston, and the way the corrugated is, when the sound hits those, they move up and down like a piston, like a shock absorber. Now, how does that work? Well, think about it. When Beyer 160s have two ribbons in there, you don't want the ribbons crashing into each other, so they move in unison up and down. So this one has a 1, and they move up and down. It's a different style. I think there's something to do with mid-range on that, and there is a screen there that could help with sound, but also does keep anything from going into the ribbon and damage. But here's the problem. That is on the other side of the screen, so all this stuff is going to add dust. So what I'll do is I need to now clean that, and I'm actually going to clean it. Whoa, sorry about that. Oh, I'm moving the chair up. Let's see here. Let's get this going. Okay, cool. So I'm going to clean this, and my goal here is just to try to remove I think there's a little, it looks like there's a little bit of dust on top of that ribbon. So first I'm going to clean this. And then I'm going to do a test, which is why I'm not going to follow this whole thing through, because I'm going to put this back on. And, but you know what though? I can see a little bit of, there's some damage right there on the edge of that ribbon. So I'm just probably going to say it. Looking at the ribbon, I think it needs to be replaced. Yeah, I think there's a little tear right here. I know it's really hard to see on your screen, but it looks like there's some damage right there and right there. But I'm going to check it once I clean it. So what I would usually do on this one, which I'm going to show you, so if you weren't here, I'd be hanging out drinking my pickle juice. Speaking of that, let's do one more swig. Oh boy, man, it makes you feel great. I think that's good for your digestion as well. All right, so, and as of right now, let's see how many people are watching. Looks like we have 4. Okay, well, there you go. My 4 peeps. And once again, I don't do this for some kind of fame or something like that. But if you are a ribbon enthusiast and you are interested in how do ribbon mics work, you'll find no one taking these apart in live, on person, telling you about all the little nuances of getting this, because for some reason it's some kind of protected groove stuff, or they think that they're... I'm only speaking for some. Coles is awesome. I think if Coles had time, he'd probably film everything, but that guy has so much intake of repairs. He does enough on showcasing ribbons. I don't think he's gonna follow through down with the repairs. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get a Q-tip. I'm gonna put a little bit of alcohol too, because I think I'm gonna use both. So I'll just put a little Pellegrino cap I use to work with alcohol, only because it evaporates, and I'm using this one is like 91%. Yeah, it's 91% alcohol. Evaporates pretty quick. So then I'm gonna, looks like I need to go to CVS and go to the lady department and get some more of this, but this is nail polish remover, which I'm going to use to remove that residue that has to come off, because I need to put more glue on it. So I'm going to put this on it, and you can see it kind of absorbing into the Q-tip. And then really lightly, I'm going to just start, see if I can take this off. And you know, the biggest deal is you just need to, once again, put new glue on this, but also I do want to get this off. So as you can tell, that's what's coming off, and that's the dust that's everywhere. So let me put some more nail polish remover on this. That's soaked it pretty good. And I mean, you don't have to make it totally spotless, but you do want to make it so it's not that, have that dust on it anymore. This transducer is really loose too. Yeah, it's starting to come off more now. Actually, it's gonna look like a lot's gonna come off. And like I said, this is not really have anything to do with the sound except for adhering this piece to the top. So if you don't get it totally clean, you know, the sky isn't falling. But you don't want this coming back into your repairs, which means if I change it and I clean it and I seal up the lid on the top, I just don't want that dust particle to land on top of the ribbon, which will affect its sound. And yeah, so this side has more than the other. And once again, I've seen different types of glues in this one. I mean, I don't know, maybe the era of this is a different type of a glue, but this one looks like it didn't even work. So whoever's at the factory ordering the glue, they're not getting good glue. That didn't do anything. All right, so we're gonna throw that away because that's becoming useless. Let's get another Q-tip going on. Yeah, it was not wrapped too tight. You're right. which I was a little bit shocked. Maybe it was a Monday. You know, they say about not buying a car, I think it was a Friday or a Monday, because Mondays you have hangovers, and Fridays they got one foot out the door. So, I didn't really get any. I'm running out. I'm almost running out of, right live on TV, I'm running out of acetone. All right, so I'm just going to just get that in there more. Yep, it's nasty. Okay, so once again, I'm not trying to do this to be Mr. Fancy Guy, but I've done this enough to where I do think it matters. Now, they glue this around the top here. I can see where they not only, you know, this bulb was screwed in, but they kind of glued it in. So I'm going to clean the top of this rim too. I may put a hair of super glue just to make sure that doesn't come loose. But I don't know if that's like eroded. Yeah, I think it is some kind of glue because you can almost see it like a powder form. Once again, it wasn't even good glue. So I don't know what they're doing over there. That is just like everything turned to dust. Or as my wife would say, dust. I know she's not German, she's Filipino. She pronounces everything almost perfect to the point of like, you know, she says it cute. All right, so yeah, something's coming off on the edge. And I'm just making sure that when I reinstall, you could see like that looks like some kind of glue. Or it's the metal is really crude. Maybe the metal is just crude, I don't know. I've never seen it. Usually this is chrome, but it almost looks like there's no plating on it. So maybe they are just, they're like, screw it, we're never gonna plate that. It's almost like the fencing. You know, it almost looks just like that. It's not chrome, but it's just covered. I've never, usually these are really nice, and I guess there isn't one there, but they usually look really nice and shiny, at least on Buyer 160s. So once again, maybe they're cutting corners on the glue. It's not that lasting that long. They didn't really put a lot of tape to hold that on. And as I start to work on it, everything else looks right. I've never seen this style of a transducer, but it is familiar to me because it is almost one part of the Buyer 160. So a Buyer 160, the first ribbon is that. And if you extended this plate outward and put one more screw there and one more screw there and had a plate that held another ribbon, that technically is a Buyer 160. Now, if I was a jeweler, I could totally make that part, raise it up, put one ribbon down, put two screws in it, and then raise that one up. I mean, who's going to do that? You just go, that cost of me sending it to a jeweler or even me doing this would be way more than the cost of just going out and buying a Buyer 160. But I am a fan of 160s that come from the 60s and the 70s era. Those are what Jimmy Page and Hendrix used. I do believe those are worth saving and trying to repair and keep it in circulation. New buyers, I think that is the beauty of them. They're high quality. Wow. It seemed like they were high quality one time. But like I said about this glue, did I get any on that? Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I'm just a little bit shocked. Not a lot of tape. Not a lot of glue holding this on. If this is meant to be used as a handheld and you're going to be throwing it around, that is not a good way for longevity. All right. Well, we're going to take this ribbon out. I'm pretty positive there's 2 points in this ribbon that aren't that good. I'm not going to do the whole process here with me, but I will at least show you how I've done it. So that is pretty much one of the big mysteries of getting in there. Yeah, I'm a little bit shocked. I mean, that was one of the first comments I made when I first did these. I was like, yeah, man, this is like Swiss watch metalwork. And then like the other part were just like, let's send it down to, you know, I don't know what country without sounding racist, but let's just send it down, and they'll put it together, and they're like, oh, we'll just use, duct tape and glue and just whatever. I don't know. I believe, like, I think even these could have been screwed in. I think BK5s may have these screwed in. I mean, they could be just screwed in and see. I don't know. I'm not sure when you cut the cost of building this beautiful transducer, and then the rest of it is just like 3 different types of glue and tape, and it's goopy, and the tape dries out, and then that stuff falls into the ribbon, and that's what ruins a lot of older 160s. All right, one more drink. Talking is leaving me parched. I appreciate everybody sticking around here. We're up to 9 people watching. Who are the 9 people? Say hello. I know that's gross to be drinking, but I just woke up, went to my favorite cafe, had some coffee, had some nice breakfast, drinking some pickle juice so I don't waste it. Okay, so let's do the ribbon. Now, some of which, once again, I don't understand. The small screws that are in the hold the bulb in are like, you can use a Phillips screwdriver. And then when you get into these, they're flathead. But these are also brass, so I don't know. I think they just source out the same ones they've always used for all the eras of these. And there's probably the machining work that's all done at Beyer that is the same. So flathead, 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 flathead. That is just... Alright, I'm not going to mess with that, so it's fine. So we're going to take this off. Now, what I usually do... Where is it at again? I'm losing all my stuff here. Wait, hold on a second. I'm looking for one piece here. Hold on. Don't... Oh, there it is. It's right in front of me. Because I've worked on these enough, and I think there's a joke that I always make about crackheads running on the carpet looking for rocks that they may have dropped. I don't like to drop screws and go looking for them, and these definitely have bounced around on the floor. It's a little bit of a nightmare to find them. It's really crazy on how they could just go into the abyss of somewhere. It's like losing a sock. So I put this little foam pad down that catches, got a little rim, will catch any screws, because sometimes you'll pull these out and think you have it in your hand, and as you go to release it, it really just falls out of your hand. If it hits this hard surface, it flies on the floor, and then I got to be like a crackhead running around looking for a crack or rock on the ground. So we're going to take this off. Now these ones, when you're taking these off and putting them on, I believe they're brass, they're super soft. You don't need to crank it down. It's just going to be holding that ribbon down there, and that tells you how much the magnets are. It's pretty good. So we're going to take this ribbon mag, and here's my, so you can know I have worked on a lot of these. This is my graveyard of 160 ribbons. And I've showed these before, but I'll show them to you here if you're not really visited Manny before. These ribbons that they put in these mics are pretty darn crazy good. Let me see here. Where is it at? Okay. That is a ribbon from a 160, which you could say, let's see what that fit. Is it almost the same? Yeah, it looks almost the same. I mean, obviously the ends are torn this one, so I believe it's the same ribbon. And those are those grooves that run up and down. That's what makes it a piston style ribbon. So when you have that ribbon and the sound hits it, the sound moves away from the center, which makes the ribbon... Come on. You are not cooperating, right? So when the sound hits the ribbon, it moves away from the center, and it gives it this piston moving up. So when it's inside the microphone, it's moving almost like that, as opposed to moving back. And that's the design of these, which makes it genius. I mean, this is genius. And one of my favorite mics. So back into the graveyard. I don't know why I keep these. I just like to look at them. We're taking this off. Back to business. Right, so once again, you don't have to crank these when you tighten them back on. You just want them snug. And one of the techniques I do, even though I'm going to replace this, is that you put your thumb or your finger away, because the screwdriver can slip off and just rip into the ribbon. And that's only if you're really wanting to save it. I'm going to replace this guy. I already know that. So see how long this screw is. That'll be interesting, because in a Beyer mic, these are really small on the 160s. So that's pretty long. All right. So usually on Beyer 160s, this first top plate, oh no, I guess that's right. This would go through 2 plates. So it's actually crazy that it's almost the same screws as well. So I will say this top part is pretty identical to a Beyer 160. See, I just dropped it in there and then it's gone. Where, oh, there it is. Whew. All right, can't lose one of those. It isn't like I can go down to Home Depot and find one. Let's do this guy right here. Once again, I'm just surrounding the screw as I'm going, loosening it. I want the screw just to come up, and I still want to be able to grab it in my hand so it doesn't go flying. These are longer than usual, so I'm just, there it is. There it is out. So I've taken 2 screws out. And like I said, Beyer 160 would have 8 small little screws. This is going to have 4. So now this top piece, and to let you know how small that is my hand, and that is holding down the ribbon. Now, because I've done a lot of 160s, I will say that is identical to one of the 160 top plates. So this is technically one ribbon of a 160. Maybe that's why they call it a 230. I don't know if that makes sense. But looking at it, let's do this one right here. We're going to loosen this one. All right, that came loose. Same as the other screw, same length. Looks about the same. Oop, sorry about that. And then we're going to do this one here. Do not make contact with the screw. And you don't want to definitely strip these. These are really, really important that you do not force them. You have good screwdrivers, and you don't want any problems with trying to find another screw like this. You just will not. I'm sure somewhere in the world there's a guy that knows all the alternatives to this, but these are very, because I'm making my own ribbon mic, I can appreciate that work. And this is identical to the other one, which I'm going to put mine in it. Once again, that looks exactly like a Beyer 160 top, even though this mic is a 230. So you can see 2 screws are going in there. Now here's what's interesting about this, which I think is really cool. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a flat, this looks flat. And then right there, it looks a different color, because I don't know if the camera's going to really show it. You can see it's indentated. So when I put these back, that is where the ribbon is going to be laying. And this little bit of, when they dug out a little bit of the brass, the ribbon moves in that. So it's not necessarily just a square block. And that's what's cool, because most Chinese microphones, and maybe only in Beyers, I've seen them make their brackets where they make a little bit of wiggle room out of the brass, and that's where they've grinded it out so the ribbon has room to move there. So the ribbon is sitting there, and when I go to reinstall this back, which I won't be doing the full thing because it's going to take me about half the day to get this going. And I've got to some really concentrate. I've got to send this back, and I don't want to take a chance. So that is a really good example. If you can see that, how it's dark in the center, that is all grinded away. So the rest of it, where you see it shiny, that is the part that's sitting flush on the top of the plate. So when you put it on this plate, the part that's flush is still covering that little U area. But then because they grinded out the center, the ribbon has room to flex and move around. And I just think that's kind of ingenious. So the Beyer 160s, the plate that runs across here has an indentation in it. And then when you put this one on top of that, so you put one ribbon down and it's grinded out to move up and down. Then you put this one on top of that one's grinded out to move up and down. Once again, that's when I talk about that whole Rolex thing. So if on the top, now that I've taken apart, those are the parts. 4 screws and 2 plates. If that was a Beyer 160, it'd be 8 screws and 4 plates. There's our ribbon. We are going to replace this. I'm feeling confident about that. But before we do that, we have to address this. Once again, there's still, and I don't want to ruin this because of the acetone, and that's plastic. I don't know if that would eat it away totally. I'm going to say probably not, but I don't want to take a chance. But I do want to clean. I think I am going to have to go to CVS because this is going to be the last of my acetone. So I'm trying to get as much as I can on this. All right. So then I'm going to clean the bottom of this just a little bit. Take some of that off. And it's just because I just don't want whatever residue or dust. And I don't think there's going to be too much to damage the plastic underneath it, except I want to be able to glue it down again and not have this ruin the rubber cement. So yeah, so the coolest thing about this thing is that, let's take a little bit of that off too. That's the adhesive from the tape, whatever. Okay, so that part, if you remember, was on that. And we're almost at the point of, we're going to be done here, at least for what I'm showing you. So we removed that. We've removed the small screws and 2 brackets. So those brackets, and I'm hoping you can see that on your screen. So the ribbon goes all the way out to the edge right here. Those brackets that I just took off are holding the ribbon down right there. Now, what makes these mic, once again, a little bit genius is those 2 indentations right there. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, these 2 little indentations help the spring load these ribbons so they move up and down. But they also force the ribbon, and they're kind of I don't have anything to show you here. God, I'm gonna get. Well, this would be a terrible example, but I'll just show you like this. Okay, so imagine this is the ribbon. This is the you're looking at the front of the ribbon, and this is the part that extends over the edge. And see that is hooked. The ribbon tension on these ribbons is kind of like that. When they glue them in, when they lay them in, and you go to put the ribbon in, this pressure of making the ribbon want to jump out of the microphone, I believe, is how they keep it inside. So whenever you see these and they're busted and a guy will open it up, you see the ribbon always pop out. And that's because I believe they're spring-loaded. Now that's so crazy to say it because no one does that and no one cares about that. But obviously Beyer does. And I do think it's a little bit genius of them, because when you put it in this transducer, which everything in it, with, like I mentioned, the uh, grooved out grooves in this, and then the way the ribbon lays in this, the ribbon kind of sinks down into a little bit of a, almost like a hammock. So it doesn't just lay in there straight. It kind of goes in, dips down, and then comes back up the top. That whole thing is part of their sound, part of their what would be that word, like not agility. It's able to take a lot. And yeah, Joey, what's up? Yeah, it looks like I know I'm doing an open surgery here. So now I'm gonna, even though this is really in there now, I'll do this just for the sake of it. It's never really worked for me. So when some people talk about, they've asked me, can you save these ribbons? Even though I have a graveyard of these ribbons, I don't ever reuse them again because of this one thing. They don't really come out of here. And the way you can loosen them, I'm putting a little alcohol on a Q-tip. Even though I'm putting this Q-tip on them, man, they're just almost nearly impossible to get to come up off that. So that being said, which means you just have to ruin it. So I'm gonna go grab some tweezers, and I'm gonna do something that, once again, do not do this at home. I'm not a professional either, but I'm gonna ruin this mic. And do not do these to 160s unless you know how to repair them, or you're willing to spend the money, or you found that one that's blown and you're gonna experiment on it till you get it right. But I'm gonna remove this ribbon, which is sacrilegious, but I have to. I've got to get it out of there to replace it. So it's not gonna come out that easy. So even though I lift it like that, even on the end, now once I get it to this point, these are plastic tweezers. One, they're not magnetized. Two, they're really easy to work on. Let's see, pegwood is good for cleaning that. Doesn't leave any scratches. There you go. That is true. So I'm gonna grab this ribbon out. Oh yeah, so even though I remove this nice, it's still stuck on this one. And what I have to do now is I have to, I don't know if it's gonna come off, but I have to get that off, because that is gonna be where the next ribbon I have is replacing it. So it's not really, come on, you got me live here. We gotta get this off. Well, I'll have to address that later. It looks like some of it came off. Yeah, I'll have to clean that later. So this is a ribbon, the big mystery of why I never find these online. I don't know. Maybe everybody that repairs ribbons are gonna get mad at me because I'm showing this. It's not really that big of a mystery, but I will say you take your life in your own hands when you want to repair these, because they're really difficult. These take me a long time. So that is a Beyer 160 ribbon. You just saw me take it out of it. To me, these are works of art. These are probably some of the most beautiful ribbons, corrugations that you can get in a microphone. There's so much thought, so much technical brilliance into this. So that, what you can see here, these little indentations are where the sound is making these move up and down like a piston. This is giving it that little wiggle room to move. But also this is how I believe they're spring loaded. I don't think this will show it too much, but on the side you can see it kind of goes up a hair. I think because I've already taken this out, it doesn't have that much of a spring load in it. It's really, really super difficult to get that spring load back in to that ribbon and make it do that. And that's part of the reason why when I make these ribbons, they're just really difficult to do. And I swore off doing 160s and 230s and 130s, but and 500s, but I just have a lot of friends that have, ooh, I just dropped it. I caught it. Good catch. That's it. Look how small that is. To give you an idea, how small is this compared to other ribbons? I'm going to put this right here. I got a ribbon right here. Whoa, Nelly. Look at that. So that is something out of a larger ribbon mic, which at some point in my life, I loved working on Bio 160s when I first started. It was the only mic I ever worked on, the only mic I ever knew. So when I would work with ribbons these small and learn how to work with them and learn actually how they work, how to install them, what made them special, I then got the confidence to say, hey, wow, maybe 160s, I'll work on some other ribbons. So then, let's put this into the 160 graveyard. Now 130 and 260 and 500. When I started working with larger mics, I was just like, what the hell? Are you kidding me? That is easy. Well, they could still be a bitch, but tells you that how small that mic is to this one. And yeah, 160s, 500s, 230s, they're all very special mics. I love all ribbons. If you guys want to follow me on my Instagram, it's Manny's Mic Locker, but then also my ribbon mic company is called OGMC, like Original Gangster, but Original MC, stands for Original GravityWave Microphone Company. And I'm have a new design coming out that's pretty crazy. It's like a BK5, but my respects are in Beyers. I love Beyers. That design is wicked. To show you on the inside what I was talking about, there's not wiring there. It's almost like this brass or copper pins that come up into the transducer. One is positive, one is negative. How these are separated from the magnets, which is, I'm assuming the magnet is probably right under there. I think these are metal plates. These could be magnets. There could be 4 magnets. This could be 1. There could be 1 in the bottom. I'm assuming maybe there's 2. Don't beat me up online if I don't know. So this is the inside of what it looks like. There's no wiring coming up, but there's like these copper or brass wires that come up that get soldered into that. One's positive, one's negative. That obviously runs down the body into a transformer and then out of an XLR. All right, well, it's time for me to enjoy my pickle juice. If you guys love this, like I said, thank you, Shannon, for the coffee. You can go on the thanks and send me $5 for a coffee, $1 for a coffee, 50 cents. It doesn't matter. It really does help me out. And at least once a month, I go down to the Trader Joe's or supermarket, and I appreciate you guys helping me out. It's all I do it for. I'm doing this for chump change, but I do believe that I learned from a guy named Ulf. If you can do me a favor, go up online, and I think if you search how to make a ribbon mic or making a ribbon mic, years ago during the pandemic, I saw this video of this cat in Sweden named Ulf. And Ulf did this killer, he made the whole ribbon mic and put it inside like a guitar box, and he grinded it and cut it and made the transducer, and it blew my mind. So I thought, I'll make a mic. And so I started, because I loved 160s and I had a bad 160, I decided to try to design the ribbon. And as I started to do that, I realized so even before I made a mic, I was making the ribbons for 160s before I even knew how a ribbon mic works. But that came back from watching Ulf. And to this day, some of his techniques and what he showed me then, I still do a lot of what he did. And he's also become a good friend of mine. Whenever Ulf comes to the United States for NAMM, I usually meet up with him. We go to Nick's Cafe. We have a great breakfast. He just made a killer fucking guitar that I'm hopefully will be buying one from him. He's in Sweden. You can add him. I think it's on Instagram. It's called Hobo Rec, like HOBOREC. And I think if you search on YouTube Hobo Rec, you can see him making his first ribbon mic. Watching Ulf, you could then go to Home Depot or find online on Amazon and buy all the parts that he did and make your first ribbon mic. I haven't had enough time to really do that. I'm just caught up making records, trying to survive here. I've got a back order of a bunch of mics, and this is one of my repairs I've got done. I used to have a massive pile of microphones that people have sent me to re-ribbon that I took on in the very beginning of the year, not knowing that my studio would be closed down and I'd have to move. And then it took me 4 months to build the studio. I've barely been up and running, a little bit over a month, and I'm trying to get my life in order. So that's where Manny's been. That's why I'm late to the game with getting all these done. But I am moving through all these pretty quick. And I do believe in the next few days, I'm going to finish all my orders. And that's why I have not posted anything saying, hey, send me your mics and I'll upgrade them. I'm a little bit overwhelmed with trying to get what I have done. That being said, cheers all. Happy Father's Day to the fathers out there. I'm a dad. I hope you're just enjoying your life. Try to stay healthy. If you're interested in ribbon mics and repairing them, it is a wonderful thing that you don't really need any technical skills as far as electronics to just get started. And to make your own ribbon mic, you need a solder gun and some will to watch the videos, take some notes. Really, ribbon mics are caveman. It's magnets, it's a thin piece of foil, it's wires, it's a transformer. It goes out to a mic cable. That is a ribbon mic, and that has been around since the 1930s. Enjoy, everyone. How many people are watching right now? Did I make everybody leave? 4? Holy smokes. Okay. To the 4 that are there, Joey, I know Shannon. Did anybody else pipe in who's here? Cowabunga. I don't know if Cowabunga is still there. That's 3 of them. All right, everyone. I'm going to sign out. Hope you're doing well. Happy Father's Day. And there it is. Cowabunga, $5. Oh, my God. Yes. You are bringing it home. Thank you. Thank you guys both. My morning is made. We got another Pellegrino bottle on you. Thank you so much, man. That's my splurge of life, is good coffee, good water, good pickles, and then into pickle juice I drink like shots. You guys are the best, man. I appreciate that. All right, talk to you guys all soon. Let's see if I can sign out. It's always a trick. I'm going to sign out. What do I got to do to sign out? End right now.